Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a new edition of the EKN Face2Face. It is March the 14th, midway through the third month of the season. Winter series essentially getting wrapped up. New summer series starting to happen. And again, diving deeply into the 2022 season. My name is Rob Howden. That is, of course, David Cole joining me. David, another edition of Face2Face. It's been a while since we've done a live one like this.
Yeah, we've had a busy winter, and so we haven't had a lot of time to kind of regroup and do some of these special shows that we like doing. And yeah, so we've had one face-to-face in 2022, so this is only our second, but our 50th episode. So it's been basically 2 years yesterday since the pandemic, and that is what sprung our face-to-face program.
That's true. Yeah.
So really, about 2 years, we've done over 50. We've done 50 episodes so far.
That's interesting, right? When everything happened, we got locked down, ended up coming back. You, of course, coming back from the Winter Nationals. I was in Florida for the road to Indy. We started with IG Live. We did a lot of IG Live interviews, and finally said we got to figure out how we can do these live broadcasts and dove right into it. So that was
yeah. You can't save those. These we can save and keep forever. And the IG Lives, it's almost like the TikTok and the Snapchats where it just goes away and you can never you can never find it again.
That's true. So this edition, folks, you saw what we put up on social media. We have Brittany Lobaugh from the Texas Sprint Racing Series joining us here as she did last year as well. Again, one of the big series. Texas has always been, David, kind of home to karting in a big way, right? It's not like there's been like 15, 20 tracks, but there's always been a lot of great drivers, some really great kind of core foundation clubs down there, and then so many great drivers who've always ventured out, right? A lot of those Texans don't just stay at home. They want to come and run the National Series as well.
Yeah, and so we've seen a lot of drivers over multiple decades, dating back to, I want to say the first road race Grand Nationals was back in Texas in like the early 60s. So Texas has been a good foundation for the sport. And as you said, we've seen a number of drivers coming out of there. We see a lot of drivers from into the professional ranks go from karting to professional. Like a Jack Crawford, he's moving up the ranks right now, and many others. We see a Jake French. We see a lot of these drivers that are at the top level, the national level for multiple years. And we have a lot of young drivers up and coming through the karting ranks right now that we could be hearing for a long time, not only in our sport, but in professional form as well, too.
So again, we see a lot of these Texas drivers, whether it's in the SCUSA Pro Tour, United States Pro Kart Series, the Rock Cup programs, all over the country, Texans coming up to race. And of course, at home, there are a lot of great tracks and clubs, as we talked about. Denton with North Texas Karters, of course, the track at Speed Sports, Dallas Karting Complex, which is building another secondary track there as well. The club at Katy, a number of different tracks and clubs around the country. But the one thing that brings them all together right now is the Texas Sprint Racing Series, anywhere from 150 to 170, 180 or more entries throughout last season. They've got a 5-race program set up for this year. And let's bring in Brittany Lobaugh right now. She runs the whole thing, and we'll get an opportunity to talk to Brittany. The off season's almost over, Brittany. It's almost time to go to work.
Oh, like I haven't been working the last few months putting it all together, right?
Is that not right?
But on track work, right?
Like, exactly. Everybody
stuff
thinks
we really live for, not the back end stuff that just fills up the time.
Yeah, Brittany, everybody thinks you just roll in there with the trailer. You did it last year. First time, you got the old registration forms from last year. You just put another race on, right? There's so much that goes in behind the scenes.
Oh my gosh, so much. I mean, really, I'm start planning this season before last season's even over, right? Like I have to get my races on the calendar before we even end the year. And then just keep going. We've been
as David had posted up there, folks, and if those of you are watching either on Facebook or YouTube, if you do have any questions, maybe your Texas Karter has a couple questions here you'd like to ask Brittany, feel free to put it up in the comments. We'll bring that into the screen if we see fit and get a chance for Brittany to maybe answer those questions. So very interactive here. We'll take the opportunity here on the face-to-face to kind of go through the schedule a little bit, talk about where the Texas Sprint Racing Series is going to run. We'll look at their focus class structure, talk about their, their connection with the IKF, the International Kart Federation, and of course, Superkarts USA, and talk, what's going on this year that may be a little bit new. So, Brittany, let's start talking about the schedule first and foremost. And you guys did this a couple of years ago, and I think it's been big. You launched the season right before the SCUSA Winter Nationals at NOLA Motorsports Park, getting a chance to kind of come out of the gate strongly for the Texas Sprint Racing Series. Let's talk a bit about that opening round. We're just a couple of weeks away from getting things rolling at NOLA. for your first round of the Texas Sprint Racing Series. How do things look? I'm assuming you're going to have a big paddock and a big grid, but how is it looking?
Yeah, we are, I think, right around the 170-ish number. Might have been just over while I, was out doing some things today. Haven't checked in a good couple minutes, but we're already, hitting those numbers. We have a very full paddock, and we're working to find some extra space for the people that are still late to their pit requests. So pretty much everybody now will park on site, and we should be able to fit everybody in. But Stan and I work real hard to make everybody fit in there. This one's looking to be really, really big. This is the third year at NOLA. And the first year, I don't think we've overlapped with another national event, which is kind of a game changer for us, I think.
That's awesome. Yeah, you want to have that because, again, as David and I harp on a lot, there's just so much racing going on around the country, David. It's hard to stay off a weekend. I think this weekend coming up, maybe like the only weekend off that some of the national teams have had in quite a while.
Yeah.
From what I recall, I'm trying to pull up the schedule now, but yeah, it looks like, this is kind of like that off weekend. A lot of teams, I think this is kind of like the Florida break. Everybody's left Florida now. So they're either going to NOLA to get ready for your race, Brittany, or they're heading back home before they go to NOLA. So yeah, we had the Simcraft, we had Florida Winter Tour this past weekend, but really the March 18th through 20th, there's no other racing. But what, Brittany, kind of go over like what, NOLA Motorsports paddock is large. What's kind of the big problem? I know we talked about it off air, but kind of go into what the issue is with the spacing.
Well, really, because we typically have a fairly full paddock anyways with, 170 racers, and we have a lot of individual people that are just bringing their own trailers. Now we add in all the SCUSA sponsors and large teams. So in addition to all the small little, teams and players we have locally, we have these big footprint teams that actually house more than sometimes the small ones. But it's just a lot more to add to the paddock. Yeah. And, when we get the RVs in there, because I know their RV space, I think might be full now. It just adds in even more.
This is not an issue that we had back in the 2000s, late 90s and 2000s when everybody thought we had big races back then. The size of the events we've had lately over the last, even let's say 5, 6, 7 years, just massive events that really are overrunning so many of the tracks that we actually come to. Now, I know a bunch of people are asking questions. We will get to those questions. Don't worry, folks. We're not going to interrupt them. We want to get through some of this stuff first. So you start at NOLA Motorsports Park, Brittany. It's obviously going to be a fantastic way to kick things off. And then you roll from there into the May 2021-22 back to New Caney, north of Houston, Speed Sports Racing Park for round number 2.
Correct. That's here in my backyard, and we all love going there. So that's that track. Everybody seems to like that track. It's a longer track, and yeah, so it's a can't miss on our schedule.
Yeah, it's a fantastic facility. I've been there many times, as you know, love that racetrack. But then you talk about the fact it's a longer racetrack, right? A little more wide open. Probably, I guess, other than DKC, the new track at Dallas, we'll try to talk a little bit about the newest track really in Texas in terms of a competition racetrack at Speed Sports. But then you go to one of like the cornerstone tracks from the wide open track down to Denton, which is, I like to call it kind of the bull ring because it's such a cool little facility that just races so well. You go to Denton, when's that race? June 24, 25, 26, middle of June or end of June for that third round. That seems like it's always a really, really good round of competition for you guys.
They have a huge club following. Yeah. So even if some other people don't make the trip, which most of them do at this point, but even if they don't, we pick up so many locals that have never raced with us before every time, or they might just come for that event. It's just a very, very popular club track, and their club races do really well on a whole outside of when we're there. So we love that they support us, and hopefully, we do the same for them.
I would ask, is there any chance that you guys do that at night in June, or is it a day race?
That was going to be my question. That was going to be my question.
We tossed the idea around, but then we remembered that we tend to have 40 carts start the race for KA, and 40 carts on that tight of a track under the lights just sounds like trouble.
Awesome.
No, it sounds like Bristol. It sounds like Bristol.
So we've tossed that idea around. At this point, that is not the plan. But if something changed, I wouldn't be opposed to it. It just isn't in the cards at the moment.
Sorry, David. I apologize.
No, it's all right. It's all right. But she did say something I kind of want to get into as we continue through the schedule is for somebody who doesn't know much about Texas Sprint Racing Series, or somebody who might be trying it out this year, what's kind of the difference going from club to a regional program such as this? What are maybe one or two things they should kind of be aware of that's going to be different from, say, a club race and going to your race?
So some of the things are, at the club level, most tracks don't have, they do tech, but maybe not as in depth as we'll do it. We also, try to follow everything a lot more closely. Our goal is that you can step from us into a national series and hopefully be well prepared. So a lot of times we have people asking questions like pre-tech forms, when do they get turned in? How do I fill this out? There's just a lot more specific items that we ask them to do, different sealing. For the clubs, a lot of times the beginning of the year, they give you your, not necessarily putting a new one on every event. A lot of the engines don't get sealed for club racing, so that's something new for most club members.
So mostly pre-tech and sealing of the engine. So really kind of the functionality of getting prepared for a race. Not necessarily the on-track stuff, but mostly off-track stuff.
On track, I would say that I think that we tend to be a little more severe with penalties than some of the tracks get away with. Typically, we have more corner workers. They're also better trained, as opposed to, or at least we hope they're better trained than the parents that are, sometimes volunteering at the club level. And so we try to, make all that stuff to where we're really looking at what's happening out there and addressing things like that. I've seen situations at the club level, and all of a sudden they get to me and things escalate real quickly because they've had things that were never really addressed at the club level.
Right.
As far as, on track penalties and altercations and things like that. And so a lot of times we have to have conversations with the drivers and the teams and talk about like, okay, now you're stepping up, so we got to act, which I feel like has been a big conversation lately too, track respect. But we do try to address that if we see things that are happening as well.
And that's really what you said, right? The very first thing you said was you treat this like it's a national level series to train the people that may be running club level, whatever, what it's like to run nationally. So you could literally go from your Texas Sprint Racing Series to a SCUSA Pro Tour race, and that sticker shock wouldn't be there. You'd kind of be trained to a certain extent, be ready for national racing.
That's our hope. We still have to have people remember that we are regional and we are a stepping stone. So now that we've got the numbers equivalent to some of the national races, we still have to remind people that we are not a national series. We don't, we want the level of competition, but we also want to have the hospitality of a regional race, right? Yeah. So we don't want people that are coming from a club race being their first regional series to feel like they're not comfortable on the track. And, sometimes we have to remind people that they need to take a step back and that we still run. We have a pretty large staff, but we don't have the staff of a national series that's writing their own rule books, that's, doing all the camera equipment and the things that they have that they can bring race to race, that we're just not there.
Yeah, there has to be an understanding of what your limitations are based on what you do, and it's still it's still a culture of regional racing, right? We're still here to have a lot of fun and train some of the club people that are jumping up, stepping outside their level of comfort, right? Their window of comfort.
Right. We still want parents to feel comfortable on the grid, not feeling like they have to hire a mechanic because they've reached the national level.
Yeah.
But in the same respect, they need to understand that we're going to have more rules on the grid than at their club race.
Yeah,
and we're gonna, if your cart has to be recovered, we're not going to say go walk on the track with your cart stand. As much as I would love that,
that's funny.
There are little things that we're trying to help teach as they step up to the next level. And we are very lucky in the fact that we have a lot of national level drivers that race with us as well. But we still want to be open and feel inviting enough that the locals and the lower, the people that are just coming into this level feel comfortable and confident out there.
So we've got NOLA in March. You've got Speed Sports in May. We talked about North Texas Kartway Denton in June. You skipped the month of July. Wise move in Texas when it's 100 and something degrees. Although this next track,
August isn't much better.
No, this next track I was there. It was 106 when I was announcing, and when I was racing it too. But I love the Amarillo Kart Circuit for August 5th, 6th, and 7th. The crazy thing is, it's a track with an outbuilding, and then everybody rolls in and becomes this awesome place to race. I love the racetrack itself, the scaled down version of the track in Turkey and Istanbul. But Amarillo, great town, great little city, and just the racing there has been a lot of fun too.
Yeah, we really like it. I mean, it's a lot of work to bring everything in and get everything set up. And, besides NOLA, I think it's the one track we bring in the most other things outside. There's just not much there at the tracks as far as facility wise. But it's a good track. And we did it early in August because Texas starts school pretty early. In fact, my kids start literally 2 days after I get back, or a day.
Wow. Okay.
That's why I tried to make sure that was another race that people could run without missing school.
You wrap things up in September 23, 24, 25 at MSR Houston, their karting facility there. Tell us a little bit about that. I know we talked about it off air before we started, but for those who maybe don't know about the track at MSR Houston, what's the facility like? What are we looking at?
So MSR Houston, some of our racers has seen it on the car side, and regularly they run rentals and a few other things there. But it's a good track, it's good size, and as far as tracks go, we really wanted to try to find some new tracks to go to, not necessarily run a track more than once in the year if we can. And so there are other tracks I think that are starting to be built, but this one's there. It's been there a while. And the pit layout will be a little different than our typical layout, but the track itself is a great little track. So we're hoping that everybody enjoys it and that it's something different we can add to the schedule.
Let's move into class structure. You're obviously a regional series for the International Kart Federation. So really, you guys are doing 206, you're doing kid karts, and you're doing KA 100. That's pretty much the lineup, right?
Right. As far as the IKF side of things, we'll have, like you said, kid karts. We'll have 206 cadet, junior, and senior. A lot of our masters we had in the past have kind of switched over to the KA master program. Yep. So we would invite them back at another time if they're, if they wanted to come back. But we know, we want to, since our numbers are growing, we want to really run the classes that people are entering and supporting the most.
So 206 junior, senior, and cadet to Micro Swift, Mini Swift, and the junior, senior, and master in the KA. I'm going to give you the break because this came down from Scusa, not from you. But obviously the weight drop in KA 100 junior and senior. How's that gone so far, Brittany?
Well, I sort of got the shoot the messenger side of the deal on this one, but I think there's a fair amount of people that were upset because they're, I don't want to say on the heavier side, larger side, but they were on the upper end of the weight side of the, the weight scale. Right. Usually it's taller. It's not necessarily bigger or anything like that. But, you know, we have a handful of those, and then we have a big range of smaller drivers that in all the classes. So when my understanding, because I saw some of it but not all of it, is they started assessing at Supernats the X30s and then followed up with the KAs. So they did do a whole announcement about the whole X30 weight change. They just didn't follow it up when they finished the rest of the class roster. But so many of the drivers have 60, 70 pounds of weight on their cart. And that's a lot of weight to be carrying around. I mean, trying to drill into seats and floor pans and just finding a place to put all on that on the cart is a lot.
That's kind of been the focus, because, you know, people are talking about how much weight they're putting on. They're ruining seats after one day,
Right.
maybe even 2 days. So that's $300 out the window after one day, and you got to keep replacing them. Has the thought, and I don't know if you talked it over with SCUSA at all, or even thought about it yourself, has the thought to be able to do your own weight review with your racers itself? Now, obviously, NOLA weekend's going to be kind of hard to do it because you have SCUSA racers coming in to race, and it's not necessarily the core racers that you do have. But have you thought about doing that? You know, kind of like how SCUSA has already done it for their organization itself. Because for me, it seems like a lot of our programs that we do have around the country could just kind of focus their weights all on the racers they have themselves.
Customize it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have two trains of thought on that, and I'm happy to share them. One is that as a regional series with a stepping stone to the national series, we give away championship prizes to go to these national races.
Right.
So if I venture too far from the national weights, I mean, are you going to be competitive when you win these prizes after winning my championship? Is it worth? Some of the comments of people when I kind of brought that up, they're like, well, then I just wouldn't go. And I'm like, so I don't know how to feel about that, right? These are pretty hard to get prizes. A guaranteed start on Sunday for any to Supernads, tickets to IKF Grands. I mean, so varying a lot from those weights makes my winners potentially less competitive when they get there. But I also want to be considerate of my customer base. And like you said, I don't have necessarily the manpower to audit the races the way they did, right? So they had people that were able to stand there and say, how much weight do you have on your cart, and spend several, hours, days looking at all this stuff. Where me, on the other hand, I just don't have the manpower to necessarily sit there and do that. But what I mentioned, I think, on some of the social media comments was that I would definitely look at the scale sheets at the end of the event and have my people note who didn't have weight on, because for me, that's sort of a quicker, there was no weight on this cart, or this person was over. And I can compare. I generally know my locals, my regulars versus the national people that this is kind of their one-off race, and see how many I have that are not carrying weight or are at or exceeding the new weight system, to possibly make adjustments for the remainder of the season.
Okay, there you
go. I'm not opposed to it, but like I said, I want to make sure that any changes still make them competitive at the national level with their prize packages as well, if that's what they so choose to do.
All right. Well, I like that. I think that's a good approach. Let's dive into your staff this year. For those who may not know, what do you got lined up? Who's your race director? Let's talk about some of the key staff members and maybe any adjustments you might have made for 2022.
So this year, we still have John Over helping us as race director, but we're going to be bringing some other officials in to be working more as a team rather than one single person. And depending with with as many races there are, we'll have a few that kind of come in and out over the course of the season, but they'll all be working as a team. So things like protests and penalties will be more of a team approach to them versus one person saying, oh yeah, we're overturning this. So it'll be worked on all together, so it's not a unilateral decision.
Do you have any of those names or who else is coming in that you get to say? Yeah, you're still working on that.
Yeah, I have. Sorry, I'm like looking at all the messages as people are sending them.
I know.
I'm like, goodness gracious. I have Justin Dietrich is coming in to help us for this first race, and what did I have?
Yeah, he was just at USBKS and does Florida Winter Tour as well.
Mm-hmm. So we have a lot of people that are doing several different races. Working with my left hand to pull stuff up. It's not as quick as I'd like it to be. You know, as I have my laptop in front of my desktop and, you know,
right.
efficiently working over here.
Yeah.
I also have Preston Buckley that's coming in for this race. And so he'll be helping as well. I have Matt Ackley that helps on the national level. And several of my corner workers work several other national rated series. Nice. So we're really trying to up our game on corner workers and staff and track officials out there, so that we have very well trained eyes out there this year. And like I said, everybody more is working as a team, so we won't have over making unilateral decisions on things. It'll really be, did you see this? Even more so than in the past.
Run by committee to a certain extent, which
correct.
It's just more eyes, right? Really more
eyes. So.
Well, listen, let's, before we jump into questions and dive through this, I know one thing that you guys announced early on with Xander Clements was Kart Chaser, live stream for 2022 as well. So those who maybe have never seen a Texas Sprint Racing Series event, going to get a chance to watch online.
Yes, we had so many people that were asking for it. And so we thought we'd give it a try this year and see how it goes. It's, like I said, again, having so many national rated drivers as well racing our series, they have people all over that want to see it. And we know that moms and dads and whoever doesn't make it to the race, they still want to watch and they still want to know what's going on there. And, the live broadcast just takes everything to the next level. So
gives a chance to everybody to tune in. That's for sure. Here, let's start with some questions here. This is from Justin. He says pushbacks for TRSRS. Are you guys running the pushback bumper system?
No. Again, with like the regional national debate, right? We are considered a regional series, not a national series. We just don't have the manpower to properly manage it. I could maybe get the people to be on the track checking the bumpers and writing the penalties, but I don't have the video equipment to be able to look at protests or anything like that, or even, and the way all the national series are able to at this point.
That's always a big thing for sure. Here's another one, and I apologize for blocking you out totally when I post
No,
this
that's
up right
okay.
now. You can hide. It's from Tommy Fish saying, with DKC building a dedicated members kart owners track, is there a chance that TSRS will be coming back there?
So there is definitely a chance. Again, with some of the tracks, we have to make sure that the facilities can handle us. Like I was talking about NOLA, we are full, and that's a huge track facility, a huge pit map. And maybe without some of the national rigs and things like that possibly coming, that lowers our footprint a bit. But in talking with DKC, the area that was the pits previously for the large races, their rentals are doing so well, which is amazing for them, that they're utilizing that as overflow customer parking. And so I'm telling you, and the new track is going where a lot of the additional parking was.
Yep.
So we're waiting for everything to be finished to go up there and make sure that we have a game plan to be able to properly park everybody. I mean, at Speed Sports, we have to close down an entire road to park passenger vehicles.
Wow, that's amazing.
At this point. And so we just want to make sure before I put something on the map and on the calendar that we know that we have every, T crossed and I dotted.
And that makes sense, right? That's what we're dealing with nowadays. It's not, we were always dealing with the fact that a really, really good racetracks that had rental kart facilities then would obviously make more money on a rental car weekend than they make when we're actually there renting the racetrack. And now even when a track builds a secondary track, there may not be room to actually paddock. That's a crazy thing nowadays. And awesome that there's popularity in rental car racing. But man, when we want to go racing competitively, it makes things interesting, doesn't it?
Right. And we've gotten some conversation and some ideas in the works, but with the way that materials and things, we weren't sure of an ETA on completion at this point as well. I mean, I think, ideally, when the date is, but there's always chances with things. And I just don't like putting anything on the calendar if it's not complete. And 100, right. Texas weather is crazy. Material costs are increasing left and right. I just, if there's a chance that it's not going to be done and completely ready for us, I just don't want to put it on the calendar and have to make changes. It's just not fair to anybody at this point. So there's a chance.
Especially where you guys are right now. You look at the schedule you have. Great racetracks already, right? And so you guys are gonna be able to mix it around. When Dallas gets up and running and gets to the place where, hey, you know what, we're able to run a race. You guys have done site surveys. You figured out a place to park everybody, which is obviously the biggest challenge. Then maybe it's 2023, maybe it's 2024.
Right. So our hope would be that they finish early this summer. We can go up there and have some conversations and figure out the game plan to put it on the next year or two. But we have to make sure that we have enough space to cover everybody. And, part of the fun of the regional race is that, we still try to have room for people to camp in their RVs.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the next thing is if we have to still go to, if we want to still go, not have to, if we would like to still go to some of these tracks where the pitting becomes an issue, then we have to say that we can't camp. And, and I really hate to do that if I don't have
That's
to.
part of regional racing. That's what I always did. I love that.
Right. That's like the best part, right? Getting to go and have a drink and have cookouts and let the kids just run around like crazy people at the end of the day.
Exactly
and that is part of it.
So I think the overall message is anybody building a facility right now, make sure you have a massive paddock.
Exactly. You want the Texas Sprint Racing Series, you better have a big ass paddock.
But I think that's part of the growing spurt that we're in right now with our sport. I mean, we're seeing record numbers all over. Your series is having record numbers right now. National programs are having record numbers. These facilities weren't necessarily built to withstand this growth that we're witnessing right now.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not just me. I mean, I see that in all the series, right? So I mean, even the grassroots one, CKNA, I mean, they had a ridiculous amount last weekend or 2 weeks, whenever that was. USPK is having record numbers, SCUS is having record numbers. The tracks that we're used to going to, we can't fit in anymore. And that limits the amount of tracks we can put on the schedule as a whole nationally.
Yeah. Well, here's a segue because we're talking about new racers. Here's a question from David Whitelaw. He says, experience requirements for a newer racer in KA 100 senior. Son is joining some Texas Sprint Series racing this year. P.S. What's up, Rob? David Whitelaw. David Whitelaw, CTS, former CTS SCUSA Pro Tour, Pro Moto Tour racer. So yeah, David, how are you? So there you go. What's the question? So regional racing. What kind of requirements do you guys have to be able to go run KA 100 senior? Do you have a year of club racing in your books, or are you kind of welcoming to anybody who wants to come play?
So we do try to welcome anybody that comes into play. We do require them have a SCUSA, license or membership, whatever you want to call it these days, to be in that program. And then otherwise, I really just recommend that you've traveled to tracks outside your home track, right? That you understand what it's like to race not against the same 15 people every weekend. Maybe the tracks have 40 depending on the track, but most I think are closer to the 15 to 25 range maxing out. So you really just want to know what it's like to race against more people. This year, I have an LCQ penciled in for NOLA because based on what I'm hearing, I mean, I haven't quite reached that number yet, but it's on the schedule should I need it, because, you know, safely, how many carts can you put on a track, right?
Well, NOLA more than maybe Denton.
Right, NOLA definitely more than Denton, and it's the same. You know, we as a safety, we tend to we do try to use the blue passing flag for our, you know, newer racers. The first, you know, in the heats and at the beginning of each race, but then as we get closer to the checkered flag or in the mains, as far as safety goes, if you're getting lapped multiple times, unfortunately, we have to pull you. I've seen recently, you know, major incidents where the lap traffic or a back marker doesn't really know what to do when they're getting passed by the, you know, all the lead carts, and then they make a weird move that nobody is expecting, and it really, besides ruining, you know, the potential lead runner's race, it really causes a lot of injury and broken carts.
Right.
And that's what it comes down to. You know, whatever you are, what level of club racing you've been and whatever experience you have, know that when you come to a step up to a regional series, which I would, number one, tell everyone to do, get out of your club, go to a regional series and get a feel for it. But then understand the experience is going to be different. And if indeed you're not quite up to speed and you're getting lapped, be ready to get the blue flag or the black flag to move off the racetrack. That's what it's all about. You get there, you get the experience. Next time you come back, you're going to be faster, you're going to be better. And when you go back to your club level, back to the club you race at, it'll never be the same once you've challenged yourself in a better series.
Exactly.
Right.
You know, and so we do try to let everybody get their laps in, right? Like the goal is that everybody stays on lap and finishes the race. But we also want to take into consideration, you know, like I said, safety is huge. And when you've got 40 carts out there, for example, in the KA race, that back runner gets caught quite quickly.
Right.
That's it. Well, Brittany, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it, guys. 5-race series getting ready to go March 25th, 26th, 27th. If you're not signed up for the opening rounds at NOLA, make sure you do. What a great way to start the whole thing. You go from NOLA to Speed Sports to Denton, and then Amarillo, and then MSR Houston. This great schedule for this year. If they do want to learn more, Brittany, you guys are on all the social media channels, right? Are you on Twitter as well? Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram?
You know, I do. I have a Twitter, but I do not update it as much as I should.
Okay.
I definitely need to get better at that, because I definitely do Instagram and Facebook a lot more than Twitter. But our website, I keep very up to date as well. That's TexasSprintSeries.com.
All right. So are you doing what you can to get some sleep in before the first round of the series?
Oh, Lord help me. It's spring break this week, so my children are home.
So let's give them some sugar and keep them up all night, and you can sleep in the following week.
Yeah, they're getting left at home for our race this time, so I actually might get more sleep on a race weekend.
Yeah.
Amazing to actually say that.
That's funny.
I can relate.
Right?
Well, David, listen, I let David sleep in every Friday morning at a race. He gets to sleep in for the first time. That's funny. I love it. Yeah. Well, Brittany, listen, best of luck this year, man. This program's obviously on the up. A lot of great support, great facilities, and you know, as David had said, we're on a nice spurt right now with a lot of positivity with the sport. Series are getting great numbers, and it's good for the industry. It's good to spend money in the industry and get that money flowing, and for you guys as well. Good to be strong and moving forward. Thank you. We do appreciate you joining us here. David, any last questions? You're good to go.
No, we're good to go. Thanks, Brittany.
All right, guys. If you're in Texas, if you're anywhere near Texas, go racing, because it's a fantastic series, the Texas Sprint Racing Series. David, great racetracks too, man. NOLA, as I said, Speed Sports, Denton, Amarillo, and MSR Houston. What a good program for everybody that races in and around the state of Texas.
Yeah, and we didn't even talk about West Texas, because there's a lot of club tracks out that way too. And again, it's about growth. They don't quite have the paddock size to be able to host these, but maybe eventually down the road, as our sport continues to grow, they get a lot of members involved with their clubs, and it starts expanding. And maybe this program can be able to go West Texas and hit some of those local tracks out that way.
Heart of Texas,
exactly.
Rimrock Raceway.
Yep.
Cherries. Yeah.
Yep. So.
No doubt. Listen, Texas has always been a hotbed for karting, and it continues to grow. And again, the whole thing just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We do appreciate Brittany Lobaugh for joining us here. And again, March 25th, 26th, 27th, Texas Sprint Race gets started. Nobody's leaving the paddock because right after that, we head into the start of the Superkarts USA Pro Tour, the Winter Nationals, getting set to go the following weekend. I will be, Alicia and I will be at NOLA Motorsports Park. I'm going to go to Company Burger, David, and you don't get any of that. But David's doing the Disney thing with the family on vacay, so we'll be enjoying ourselves at some racing. You could be screaming and standing in lines.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of lines, a lot of beverages taken in that week, but hopefully some relaxing. And we're thinking about bringing some portable benches that we can, like the
fantastic idea.
Aiden came up with that idea, so we might look into those collapsible ones.
Folks, we got lots coming here, of course, on the EKN Radio Network and here on YouTube as well. We're lining up a show to try to get a hold of a couple of the race winners from the United States Pro Kart Series event that just happened in Orlando. That's coming up as well. Lots more content on the EKN Radio Network. This Week in Karting coming up soon. A lot of great content here, and we do appreciate you joining us again. Thanks to Brittany Lobaugh for joining us from the Texas Sprint Racing Series. On behalf of David Cole, my name's Rob Howden. Bye for now.